Guys, I'm very, very angry. Now, to understand why I'm angry, you're going to need a little context. About 5 years ago, I started to obsess over historical dress, particularly that of the 19th century. I was kicked into super research mode a year or so ago, and like to consider myself an amateur expert in Victorian-era fashion and culture. So when I was scrolling through ye olde Pinterest, I stumbled across this image. But Lawrence, I hear you saying, why would that make you upset? Don't you like this sort of thing? Let me explain. Though my interest is in the 19th century generally, my particular interest is in the American Civil War. As it turned out, this image is an ad for a website called Recollections. And this dress is advertised as a Civil War gown. Now, Recollections isn't the run-of-the-mill online costume shop. They specialize in pseudo-19th century stuff. They even have a whole section devoted to Civil War-era dresses, in which I found this tragical monstrosity, and this purple thing, which is actually kinda sorta alright. Though the model reminds me of Rachel Masky's evil twin. Love you, Rachel. Linking your channel down below. So, without further ado, I will systematically tear this design apart from head to toe. Starting with the head. Problem number 1. She has no hat. Both men and women of the 19th century were expected to wear hats out of doors. Problem number 2. The hair. Our lovely model could probably pull off this style in the 1890s, but that's a trifling 30 years off the mark. The common hairstyle for women in the mid-19th century looked something like this, a center part with the hair secured at the back of the head via pins, combs, or a hairnet like this beautiful lady here. The 1860s riff on this look was to twist the hair up on either side of the face, like so, then to either loop or braid the remaining hair and secure it in some decorative manner. Unless your hair was short for some reason, then you would arrange it similar to this young lady. You will continue to see styles reminiscent of this one on the rest of the images for today's rant. Anyway, back to the head. Yes, we are still not done with her. No respectable woman would be wearing makeup this obvious. Now, down to the neck. And yes, there is something wrong with it. Sorry for the fabric change, I needed all the images I could get. Lacy collars like this one weren't non-existent during the period, they were just different than depicted here. Here's a similar collar from an extant woman's magazine, but you'll notice that this one seems to be part of some kind of undershirt, while this one is just awkwardly stitched on the top edge of the dress. Collars of the period were removable, making them easy to wash and exchange between your few outfits. They were treated more like accessories, making this fluffy thing basically useless. Now, let's move down to sleeves. Ah, the sleeves. These are especially bad. I have never seen a sleeve like this on any 19th century piece of clothing. Ever. These are close-fitting and made of vertical ruffles and see-through insertion lace. The cuff is a weird frill and a bow. Contrary to popular belief, fitted sleeves were indeed a fashionable choice during the Civil War era, but the cuffs were only conservatively trimmed with no frills and absolutely no vertical insertion lace. Most of the women affected by the war would probably be wearing big puffy sleeves like these ones, fashionable during the 1850s and the first part of the next decade. Notice there are ruffles, contrasting ruffles, mind you, but still no vertical lace. There never was, and I hope there never will be. That's not the only problem with the sleeves, however. The armscye is set too far into the bodice. What does that mean? Well, once upon a time, when your clothes were very young, they were made up of lots of different pieces. Your sleeve has to be sewn into the armhole of your shirt. There is a seam where that happened. If your shirt fits you, then that seam probably sits right on the place where your arm joins your body. But in the 1860s, the armholes of the clothes were cut so the seam rested off the shoulder, as seen on this extant dress. See the seam? See how it's not on the shoulder? Good. On to the bodice. The immediate glaring issue is that she's not wearing the corset. If you're one of those people who still believes that corsets are of the devil, then before you start typing a nasty comment down below, watch this video, this video, this video, this video, read this blog post, and read this book. Go ahead. I'll wait. Links in the description. Next issue with the bodice. It doesn't fit. If you read the product's description, it claims the bodice is fitted. However, it is not. See how the fabric bunches and wrinkles and puckers around the model's bust? It fits her like a t-shirt, not a structured and elegant bodice as advertised. This is where we get technical again. Check out this diagram from an 1860s bodice pattern. The front of the bodice is given structure by 2 vertical darts on either side of the center front, all 4 of which are easily seen on the bodice of this extant dress. This allows the bodice to fit smoothly around the bust like so, avoiding all the nasty wrinkling we saw on the model. See? Isn't that nice? Now let's take a look at the back of the bodice. This part isn't structured either. See the wrinkles? Take another look at our diagram. The pieces on the right make up the back of the bodice. If you're having trouble visualizing how that works, check out this dress. Can you see those curved seams on the back? Beautiful. Just look at how beautifully that fits the mannequin. One more thing about the back of the bodice. There's a weird ruffle thing falling over the model's bum. This is actually not an unfounded detail. The back of the blue-green dress here has a nice one. So does the purple stripy dress I showed you a few seconds ago, as well as this dark green one. Back to the front. The next issue lies at the waistline, or rather, where the waistline wished it was. The bodice is way too long, making the model's waist look far bulkier than it really is. Any girl can tell you a fitted bodice that ends where it's supposed to is 10,000 times more flattering than this disaster. 1860s bodices ended right at or even slightly above the natural waistline. And even if they didn't, they still fit well and split in a very flattering way. Again, unlike this disaster. Down to the skirt. All things considered, the silhouette of this skirt isn't too bad for the 1860s. 1869, that is. A full 4 years after the Civil War ended. Even then, the waistline is still way off. Early 1860s skirts were a distinct dome shape rather than cone shape, and the dome just got sleeker and more towards the back as the decade progressed. These special skirt shapes were achieved with hoop skirts, or crinolines, like this one depicted in an advertisement from 1859. Here's an extant one from the latter part of the decade, with that slightly sleeker shape. According to the description, the model is wearing a hoop skirt available for sale separately elsewhere on the site. So I clicked on the link and ended up with this. Definitely cone-ish, and definitely not accurate. However, after poking around a little, I found a different hoop skirt on the site that was far more accurate, especially when compared to my extant example. If you have any questions about hoop skirts, check out this video by Prior Attire. Link in the description. Alright, now let's get to the construction of the skirt. It appears to be a tiered skirt constructed by sewing progressively fluffier ruffles onto one another. Those seams are decorated with lace. That's a no. Tiered skirts from the Civil War era sort of fell over one another, and were not sewn to the bottom edge of the one on top, as shown here. That's a very modern way to make a tiered skirt. These skirts from the late 1850s show exactly what I mean. The ruffles cascade gracefully down to the ground, allowed to move freely because they are not being held tightly down by their own weight. Also, this lace decoration just looks tacky. This fashion plate shows the proper way to decorate a large skirt with lace. It can't just be wide, it has to be wide. You can't be fabulous by halves in 1860. Okay, now we've reached the toes. We can't see them. At least that's accurate. But wait, there's one more thing I need to mention. fabric. This pattern looks like it crawled off of the 1970s sofa. Patterned fabrics were a thing in the Civil War, but the patterns were usually geometric, stripes, checkers, plaids, dots, etc., and reserved. Even chunkier patterns were evenly spaced. This extant floral fabric is much more elegant and subtle than this over-busy modern one. The majority of mid-1860s dresses were made from solid fabrics and decorated with trims, braids, fringes, embroidery, etc. There's so much taste and precision that it makes me want to cry. Look at these dresses. The simple fabrics let the beauty of the construction, the method, really shine through here. So, now I'm finally done ranting about Civil War era fashion. Hopefully now you can see how badly this dress represents the styles of the time. And you can probably see how terrible this one is, but I don't want you to walk away from this video thinking that Recollections is a horrible place to shop. They have a good handle on the aesthetic, if not the history, and they really do have some decent products. Their overall reviews are pretty darn good, and they seem to use natural fibers. I just wish they wouldn't imply historical accuracy where there is none. It's really not too hard to design an accurate dress when you have the knowledge. I'll prove it using their dress as an inspiration. Have a wonderful day.